I realise that I'm about 6 weeks late in reviewing Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. There is plenty of material online detailing the plot and reviews of the film, but nevertheless, in this video, I will describe the plot of the film and review it. The film starts in the later stages of World War II, and Indiana Jones is captured by the Germans at a French castle located in the Alps, where the Germans are making off with stolen artifacts. Indy's companion Basil Shaw is in the woods outside the castle, and he is also captured. The pair are trying to retrieve the Lance of Longinus, which turns out to be a fake, but a German scientist, Jürgen Woller, later known as Dr. Schmidt, has found out half of another device called the Dial of Destiny. This device was created by Archimedes, and when the two halves are put together, it reveals time fissures allowing for time travel. However, the German commander is skeptical. He and his soldiers leave the castle to board a train with the loot, taking Basil with them. The plan is to get back to Germany with the lance and the other loot. They are about to execute Indy. He escapes, he disguises himself as a German soldier, he enters a car, but so do two German officers, and he has to leave with them. They are flanked by two German motorcycles, and when he is discovered, he destroys one of the motorcycles. He leaps onto the other one, and he organises for the car to be destroyed, and he manages to get onto the train. Avoiding detection, he gets past the numerous German troops until he gets to the main carriage, where he rescues Basil, and in turn finds the half of the Dial of Destiny. While trying to escape, there is usual chase and fight scenes, followed by the Allies bombing the train tracks in front of the train, and the pair leaping into the river retaining their treasure. Fast forward to 1969, Indy wakes up in his run-down apartment in New York, and his life is in a mess. He's getting a divorce from Marion following Mutt perishing in the Vietnam War. He is going to his last day at Hunter's College before retiring. This is actually a different university from the previous films, and he's basically retiring with nothing to look forward to. This all coalesces around a full parade for the Apollo 11 astronauts to celebrate their achievements. Indy is visited by his goddaughter Helena, who is the daughter of Basil. Turns out she is researching the dial. Indy tries to warn her off the dial by telling her it drove Basil to obsession. Indy had promised Basil that he would actually destroy the half of the Dial of Destiny, but he did not do so, and the artifact is lodged in the college archives. Indy is persuaded to show Helena the research and the half of the dial in the college archives. Jürgen Woller, who is now a NASA scientist responsible for the moon landings, sends his accomplices after Indy and Helena, and while in the archives, Woller's men and CIA attack them. Helena betrays Indy and flees with the dial, locking Indy in the archives, meaning that he is captured by Woller's men and after a brief struggle. Woller's men shoot two staff members at the archive and frame Indy for their deaths. Indy managed to escape through the parade and the anti-war protest that it was following. Riding on a police horse, he finally escapes through the subway. The horse Indy rides deserves an Oscar for this performance, because it's actually one of the only good ones in the film. Indy meets with Sulla, who has left Egypt and is now a New York taxi driver. Sulla reveals that Helena is an antiquities smuggler and thinks she's en route to Tangier to sell the dial in an illegal auction on the black market. There is a short scenes of Indy on a plane, and then it fast forwards to the auction being held in a Tangier hotel, where Indy disrupts Helena's illegal auction. Dr. Woller and his mercenaries arrive and in turn steal the artifact. Indy, Helena and her sidekick Teddy chase them through the streets and back alleys of Tangier in a tuk-tuk. Woller's CIA handlers have now wised up to Woller, and the US government disavows him for going rogue. Woller's mercenaries dispose of the agents and steal the helicopter. Indy, Helena and Teddy trail Woller to Greece, where they meet up with Indy's old friend Ronaldo, a professional sea diver. Guided by Basil's research and with the help of Ronaldo and his crew, they dive into an ancient shipwreck in the Aegean Sea and retrieve a tablet containing directions to the dials of the half. But while underwater, Woller and his men arrive and take Ronaldo's boat and dispose of the crew and then Ronaldo. Indy's group escape in Woller's boat, heading for Sicily as they feel the other half is there. In Sicily, Teddy is captured by Woller's men. Indy and Helena go to the ear of Dionysus cavern to find Archimedes' tomb, which is supposed to contain the dial's second half. While at the tomb, they also find a 20th century wristwatch on Archimedes' skeletal arm. Woller appears and he wounds Indy. He also captures him. Helena and Teddy escape and then chase Woller. Voller and his mercenaries board an old World War II plane, taking captive Indy with them. After reassembling the dial, Voller reveals his plan to time travel back to August 1939 to assassinate Hitler and lead Germany to victory in World War II. Voller activates the dial and locates a time fissure in the sky. Helena stows away in the plane's landing gear. Teddy, meanwhile, conveniently is able to fly a small plane and follows them, despite not being a trained pilot, and the plane's actual pilot is also aboard, but asleep. While approaching the fissure, Jones realizes that continental drift could have altered the timeline coordinates. Voller hesitates and orders to abort, but it's too late, and they go through the time fissure. However, rather than arriving in 1939, the group arrives at the siege of Syracuse in 212 BC. The warring navies shoot at Voller's plane, believing it to be a dragon. Some of Voller's mercenaries perish in the fighting, while Indy and Helena parachute just before the plane crashes. Voller and the remaining mercenaries perish in the crash. Teddy lands safely. On the ground, in the middle of the battle, Archimedes observes the plane and decides to ride out with two of his assistants. I should note that the dial he is working on is incomplete. He comes across Voller's body, wristwatch, and the completed dial in the wreckage. He then takes Voller's watch, which is why it's found at his tomb, and he also takes a completed dial. Archimedes and his two assistants find Indy and rescue him and Helena from a Roman soldier. He then gives Indy the completed dial taken from Voller. Indy and Helena learn that Archimedes created the dial to bring users from the future through the fissures to lead them only to 212 BC, to save them from the Romans. These Romans are seen retreating, even though historically the Romans win the siege of Syracuse, which is actually against the Carthaginians during the Second Punic War, and also Archimedes himself would actually perish in the siege. Therefore, technically, he couldn't actually complete the dial he was working on in the film. Bit of an inconvenient plot hole. I should note that there had been Greek colonization of Sicily by this time for some considerable period before the siege of Syracuse, and indeed Archimedes was born there. The fissure begins to collapse. Indy wants to remain behind, feeling he has nothing to return to. Helena doesn't want this because she thinks Indy will change history. Indy is also wounded, and with no modern medicine, the wound is likely to cause his demise. With one punch, she knocks him out. Later on, a recovering Indy awakes in his modern-day apartment in New York to find Helena, Teddy, and Sulla, and Marion there. The others leave, and Marion and Jones romantically reconcile. I can see why some reviewers like the first segment of the film set in World War II, because it does feel like the usual Indiana Jones, which we all like, but as soon as it skips forward to 1969, it goes off a cliff. Indy is a sad, defeated old man, and he remains like this throughout the film until his reconciliation with Marion at the very end. He is also a sidekick in his own film, with Helena really being the main character. I wonder whether there's a hidden message there. That said, considering how poorly this film is doing at the box office and in reviews, I wonder whether even Disney would progress down that path considering their current financial difficulties. Helena is an arrogant and callous character throughout most of the film, and had to be reminded to feel remorse about Indy's friend Ronaldo and his crew perishing. Suddenly, at the end of the film, and for no reason, Helena does a complete 180-degree turn, growing a conscience with no character arc to support this. In the end, she is the one who, quote-unquote, does the right thing in knocking Indy out to prevent him from changing history, a fact Indy himself should know. I didn't find her character to be particularly likeable. Helena's sidekick Teddy is much the same as Helena, arrogant and callous, who suddenly grows a conscience at the end. His role seems too good to be true. He is not a trained pilot, but conveniently ends up being able to fly a plane through the fissure without crashing, then lands, gets Helena and Indy, and flies back. Mads Mikkelsen, who is a good actor, does try to put in a good performance, but it doesn't seem to be quite right in this film. The film's ending is near enough the same as Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, with Indy back with Marion, is setting up a potential heir after getting rid of the last one, and in effect it doesn't move anything forward. If it was so important for a female lead to take over from Indy, there is his daughter Sophie, introduced in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles series, and indeed having Indy have a daughter was brought up in the development for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but this was rejected by Steven Spielberg for being too similar to Jurassic Park, so we got Mutt instead. Indy's daughter would be about the right age for the film in 1969. It would be canon, because she was introduced in the series and would have made for a better heir for Indy. It would also have been good to bring her back, but alas, no, it wasn't to be. I thought the CGI elements were poor, and the deepfake Indy at the beginning looked more like a facial animation on the computer game. The film itself is a long, meandering film of 154 minutes that could have had at least half an hour cut out. The film left me feeling sad and disappointed on how it ends. It's a poor end to an iconic franchise. It's not a surprise that the film has only grossed $369.4 million at the box office at the time of recording this video. In the interviews leading up to the film, Harrison Ford didn't seem particularly interested in the character, and in his video thanking fans he seemed more like a rabbit in the headlights, or in a hostage video rather than anything else. And there's also an article that I read regarding Harrison Ford saying an Indiana Jones reboot doesn't require his blessing. And I just find it sad that the actor playing such an iconic character doesn't seem to care or like either one of his two main characters that really jump-started his career. The other one, of course, being Han Solo, and it's well known that Harrison Ford detests his character also. Well, thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.